Hello, I am back to talking. I wanted to do this for a bit, but I put it off until Hawks wanted to tag people, so here I am. This is also very late because I recorded a full video of this and then decided to redo it because I rambled, and even with editing, it was like 40 minutes. I am doing this semi scripted. I have my answers in mind more or less, but I'm going to try to talk without a script because I couldn't actually sit and script things. Also, I am going to talk a little fast in this. So let's get started. This is the Warriors 20 questions tag, and I will tag people at the end. So first question, how did you get into Warriors? I, at some point in my childhood, was studying in a place where I did not have access to the internet at all. So and I was really into reading books. So I found Into the Wild and Fire and Ice in my library, and I read those two really quick. And I was really interested in reading whatever I could get my hands on at the time, and I quite liked Warriors for some reason, or maybe I was just fascinated with it, I don't know. And because we only had 2 books in the library, I wanted to finish the rest of the arc. So about once or twice a semester, I was able to convince my parents to buy a few of the other books for me. I finished the entire first arc and the New Prophecy, and then I think I may have also gotten a couple of super editions. And for reference, I think I started reading the series around 2011, and I ended up finishing Omen of the Stars in 2016 because it took me that many years to find and read all of the books. I don't even own Power of Three and Omen of the Stars. I just had to randomly find them across wherever I could. Favorite arc? This one is kind of hard because I have pretty bad memory. So for me, my favorite arc is whatever I've read most recently. Also, my favorite is not necessarily well written. I have a complicated relationship with most arcs where the potential of the arc is kind of what gets me hyped for it versus what actually happened. So that being said, my personal favorite, not accounting for writing style and whatnot, is I do quite like the 2 significant elements of Power of Three. So that's good, but I mostly like Vision of Shadows. I like the first 3 books a lot, and I did actually see a lot of potential and want them to explore the Sky Clan Shadow Clan conflict. I thought that would be really interesting, especially since Sky Clan was playing so loose with the Warrior Cats rules that it would be interesting to see what kind of conflict they would bring in. Favorite book excluding mangas, super editions and novellas. I'm gonna say River, because with Warriors a lot of the times I will look at a book, I will enjoy it, and I will say, oh, this has potential, and then a later point in that arc will ruin it for me. So River is kind of untouched by whatever they do later, so that's kind of my current favorite. Also, I have a really hard time remembering individual books. I remember what I read most recently, but I cannot remember full details. Like if I wanted to say I like Long Shadows, for example, it would be because of the fire scene, but I can't remember what happens before and after, and I don't own the book, nor do I really want to go back and reread a lot of Warrior Cats books. So my answer is just gonna be River. I like the protagonist, and I like character-driven, character study arcs. And you could argue that it's not very character-driven because they're all kind of controlled by their circumstances, but I like it when it focuses on putting a specific person in a situation and just seeing what that person would do or how they manage it, without necessarily dealing with what exactly, the big grand plot is, who the villain is, and other things like that. And it's also a very real, personal, relatable story. Like, not personal as in happening to me, but it's a very down-to-earth story. Favorite super edition, manga and novella. I'm gonna answer each of these. I'm gonna start with novella because that's the easiest. I haven't read a bunch of them. So I quite liked Goosefeather's Curse because I liked seeing how intense Warrior Cats could get when there were no stakes in the real world. Like, if they could not do this with Firestar, Greystripe, or any of the current cats, because we are watching these cats right from the time they grow up. We're watching them go through so much, and for them to do it to any cat that we know very closely is very unsatisfying for the audience, as well as punching a hole in the timeline. But because Goosefeather is such a backstory character, he's Blue Star's uncle who's old by the time she's born, you know? Because of that, it's interesting that they can do whatever they want. They can make it as weird as they want to. And the fact that this person has such a bad roll of the dice in life, that and all the events that happen to him are fascinating. I don't really like what it does in terms of the self-fulfilling prophecy stuff, because that could be good, that could be bad. I don't really want to get into a debate about that right now, because I do think there are merits and faults. But overall, I do like seeing what happens to him. It's fascinating. Also, in terms of novella, I do like Spotfur's Rebellion, because I think it's an interesting, nice little thing to her personality and her backstory. I haven't read a lot of the supplemental material or like anything outside of the main arc around her, like her lifetime and that period, and I read Omen of the Stars years ago, so it didn't feel like repeated information to me. Favorite manga is for nostalgia's sake, Rise of Scourge. I love the art, I love his design, and I just like how it's a villain story. I like villains. I also quite like Feathertail's comic. Mudclaw I do kind of like a little, but not too much. It's not as good as Feathertail's, but I do quite enjoy it still. But Feathertail's was really good. And Super Edition. I have not read a lot of the big popular ones like Tallstar's Revenge and Hawkwing's Journey and Crowfeather's Trial. I'm gonna go right now and say Crooked Star's Promise was really good, and I think that's the most recent one I've read, so I'm gonna go for that one. I like it. Okay, number 5, favorite clan. I'm gonna say 3 names. One is Warrior Clan, because I think the concept of them is just really, really funny and cute. Like, I genuinely wish I knew who suggested that, like if it was the writer or editors, but like it's a really cute idea. I love the concept of Warrior Clan. On a very like personal nostalgic level, Shadow Clan, because I always liked obviously the shadowy aesthetic, and also just the fact that they were the villains a lot of the time. I feel like it was always interesting, and I wish that they were used more, because you'd have like Thunder Clan, or at least another clan who's very bound to the rules, and Shadow Clan who were, in my opinion, very open and adaptable. You know, the fact that they could switch their morality that much just meant that they were more resourceful and not really bound by tradition as much as what logically made sense to them or what seemed beneficial. The other clan that I like is Sky Clan, because of the potential they had when they came back to the lake, with them playing very loose with the rules like Daylight Warriors and the naming conventions, and just how they had to adapt after being on their own for so long. I feel like getting to explore that in more detail would have been interesting. Favorite character. Okay, this is hard, and there's a lot of them. Just assume that if a character is an antagonistic force, or grumpy or edgy, or just kind of like mean, and I like them because I find those characters to be really entertaining, or if they cause a lot of drama. And if a character is a black cat, or mostly black cat, or has a sufficient amount of like dark colors on them, I will also like them. That being said, I don't have like a top favorite. I currently quite like Flamepaw for how he starts off being very grumpy and show-offy. I feel like it does get a bit repetitive that they're just hammering home this one comparison, but you know, fine, whatever. I just hope that the plot kicks his butt soon. I'm okay with him whining about the same topic, as long as they like get a move on and have the plot absolutely destroy him till he comes to his senses. I like quite a bit of characters. I would say like Flamepaw currently. Sunbeam is also nice, but I can't really think of any specific character who is my absolute favorite because I tend to be very neutral when it comes to warrior cats. I am okay with my favorite character being killed off or not getting everything that they deserve because it's warrior cats. Yeah, I didn't really. It's mostly I enjoy the series through fan works and through my own interpretations of the series through a cultural lens, which I am very excited to make a video about at some point in the future. Least favorite character. Again, I don't have a least favorite character because I could classify characters in two ways, like if you told me, okay, classify the characters in a way that the least favorite is someone you would not like in real life, then I could give you a whole list. I could give you a massive, massive list of all the characters who I think are bad people, and I could hand that over to you, and that would be great. But in terms of like, oh, they're badly written, I don't know. And again, part of it could be because I haven't read a lot of the books. And I don't, when I judge a character for being badly written, right? Like, one character I think is not that well written, like, from what I can understand, is Thistleclaw, because it kind of feels like what they did to him later was to further justify him being in the Dark Forest, which was kind of like, I don't know why they had to do that, but I haven't read that novella either, so I'm not really gonna judge anything at this stage until I read it myself, or if I ever do, which I don't have an interest in. But like, I don't hate him again because I haven't read that book, and my judgment of him is from Blue Star's Prophecy, where he is a good character because he's specifically a very antagonistic force in her life. He is the reason that she became leader because she had such a bad relationship with him that the thought of him becoming leader terrified her. So in that, he's a good character because he serves his role well, and for me that's what matters, is does this character serve the role they need to serve in the story? And if I don't like a character, I'm just kind of meh, shrugs, okay. Most aesthetically pleasing cat. Any black cat in the world. Black Star is also up there. But Soul, I would say, because I really like the designs that we get for Soul, both in canon and fandom. Those are really cool looking ones. Also because he's always drawn as a little stinky boy and I love him. Favorite leader. This one's kind of hard. Again, I haven't read Dawn of the Clan, so I'm just kind of going off of main series. I like 1 star for the drama he causes. I like Leaf Star's potential, but I'm kind of neutral on her itself. I liked Night Star as a kid, but I haven't read his comics, so I don't know if he holds up. And I could go on about each and every leader, so I would probably just stick to my first answer of 1 star, and it's not because I like him as a person, I just find the drama with... I find his selfish nature to be quite interesting, and I've grown to like Hairstar a bit ever since I think Moon Kitty did the read over analysis, because then I realized, this guy's actually a bit of a coward, and I found that to be interesting. Like, oh, okay, so background character became a leader, like that's very unexpected in the new arcs where everybody, like we know every single leader except for Hairstar, who's just a nobody, and it's like, it's interesting. Favorite villain. Oh boy, this is another really hard one because I love all the villains, If I really had to choose, I would go for... Scourge is iconic, but I don't know if I like him as a villain. He's just like a fond placeholder in my heart. I really like Darktail. He has a lot of potential. Even if I haven't read Hawkwing's journey, I still really like him in the Vision of Shadows. Sleek Whisker a little bit because she's like all of the fan stuff around her, but not on her own. I don't remember much about her. And I like Ashfur, which is obvious. I totally didn't make a whole map about him because I like him that much. I just find him to be funny. That this cat just said, you know what, I'm not gonna give up on a grudge and I'm gonna be the biggest incel in Warrior Cats. And I'm like, yes, you do that, king. Like, if Ashfur was a real person, I would hate him and I would absolutely avoid him at all costs. But as a villain, I'm just kind of looking at him like, you know that meme where like pokes the brain with a stick. I'm just like, yeah, poking it with a stick. Do something. This is another one I'm a bit conflicted about. I am neutral slash a little fond of all the current medicine cats, but I feel like because you get to look at them so much because you're reading their POV, they kind of grow a little stale for me. I like the characters that are one note and they shine in their one responsibility, or they have some unexplained bit of filler to them. So, with that being said, I really like Brambleberry and Hawkheart. So, Brambleberry I like because of her general personality, her relationship with Crooked Star, all of the maps and all surrounding her, and also because in Goosefeather's Curse, they do mention that there's a lot of back and forth with the healers because of what happens during Maple Shade's time, and I find that to be a nice bit of consistency and also pretty interesting. I like Hawkheart because he's kind of like Asher for me, where I'm just poking him with a stick and saying do something. He's really interesting because he's, for anyone who may not be familiar, he is the cat who kills Blue Star's mom. And I find it interesting that this guy who doesn't really seem to care about healing is just the healer of Wind Clan. Like, I find that quite interesting. I wonder what his story is, how he got there. And I haven't read any material that involves him too deeply, like Tall Star's Revenge, so I don't know if they ever explain him, but I'd be interested in seeing that. Overrated character. I am not very involved in fandom stuff yet. Like, I don't really properly understand fandom and Warriors fandom because I've kind of been out of a lot of these spaces for a while, so I'm just starting to learn, and it's a little hard because I don't have a solid group of experienced people I can just hang around and ask questions. So I don't know who's considered overrated. I see a lot of content for like Soul and Antpelt, and those would be the closest, I guess. Like, I don't particularly care because I do like Soul and I like, all the fandom stuff around Antpelt. I just see a lot of them and I don't think they're that memorable to me from the books, but I like the fan content. That's why I got back into this series, so I don't really mind. And the same thing for an underrated character. Like, at this point, the book series itself has a very minimal place of importance for me. I put more importance on my personal interpretation and fandom, so I don't think there's any very underrated characters. And another problem with judging that is that the books kind of, now they've been releasing a lot of old super editions, as in like super editions that share the POV of characters from the first arc and older times. So a lot of the classic characters like Yellowfang, Feathertail, etc., you can't call them overrated or underrated anymore, because either we have material coming out about them that puts them back into relevancy and gives them that attention, or we have material that kind of brings them out of character or brings them up so much that people get sick of them. So it's hard to judge, so I cannot really say I have solid answers for these two questions, unfortunately. Question 14, favorite minor character. Oh boy. Yeah, I don't have any solid ideas for this one either. I like quite a few minor characters, and this is kind of where I'm a little stuck, because I was listening to my reading of these questions recently, the video I recorded, in which there was a lot of rambling, and I just said, you know what, I'm gonna redo this, but I had a lot of those answers, and that's what I was mostly going off of, but now this is kind of where I stopped, so I don't know. I like characters like Rose Petal, I like Spotfur, I don't know if she counts as a minor character, but I quite like her. I really like Blazefire and Lightleap. I think they're really interesting, what they do to Sunbeam's personality. I can't think of any others because my memory is really short, so I mostly reference the latest book I've read in terms of what's fresh in my mind. So we will see the next time I read a book what changes about this. I don't even like rereading the Warriors books because there's so many. I don't want to get through all of them. Favorite pairing, which is question 15. I am not a shipping person at all. I enjoy certain ships. I like looking at them. I'm like, yeah, this is fun or this is interesting, but I don't care. I don't like shipping in Warriors specifically because of the messed up family trees. It's like, it's so it's so precarious. It's so, you have to be so careful when shipping it, because I just look at two characters. I'm like, oh, do your names go together? Oh, cool, you guys should totally be together. And then it's like, oh, but they were retconned to be this and that. I'm like, ew, gross. Like, in my mind, if a book does not say, oh, you are my father, son, sibling, mother, child, whatever, I don't count characters as related, like, unless it's specifically like, oh, yes, their litter mate, their brother, whatever. Like, as long as it doesn't mention that, I don't count like any website, family tree. I try not to count all that, because I'm like, I cannot, because the authors don't think they're related. Like, one pairing that I can think of off the top of my head is like Ivy, Pool, and Fernsong, where it's like they're canon, but they're vaguely related. I think I know how, but I'm not entirely sure, and I don't particularly care because I don't care for the ship at all. But like, it's just, it's never brought up in the books, so in my mind it's like, okay, that's not really a feature that they planned to have. They didn't intend for them to be related and together. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm just gonna pretend that doesn't happen. As far as I know, they just emerge from the ether, but it's so hard to ignore that when they do sometimes remember familial connections, and then it's like, I can't ignore this. So yeah, I'm not really a shipping person to summarize my point. One ship that I hope gets together is not Sunbeam, Lightleap and Blazefire, just because I feel like after everything that they put her through, this happening would be the final piece to Sunbeam's Joker arc. Like, if I were her, I would strap down into the Joker if all this happened to me in whatever happens to her in River. So I would like that to happen just because of this. Yeah, otherwise I legitimately don't have any ships. It's just what would be interesting, and whatever is currently canon, I guess I don't care, you know? If you're talking about like non-shipping, then yeah, I mean, there could be some interesting pairings in terms of like what duo of friends, you know, it's kind of like, oh, is this like the team that gets shit done? Is this like a recipe for disaster? You know, like, especially when you're talking about mentor apprentice, like, is this mentor going to be able to do their job? Is this apprentice going to be a pain, etc., etc.? Like, I like the duo of like grumpy, down to earth Dust Belt and Squirrelfly just being an absolute like disobedient know-it-all, and him trying to just teach her while also just simultaneously just slamming his head into a wall. Like, I find that to be like a nice image, but that's not really like a shipping, because, and I don't really know, because like it's this question says pairing, and like I assume that means shipping, but that could just be like a pair of friends, or just like, oh, what's this pair of people and their dynamic, you know? So like, I don't, not from a shipping perspective, but from like other relationships perspective, I could think of some characters that make an interesting combo, you know? Like Sunbeam and Lightleap are interesting as friends. Like, actually the whole trio, Sunbeam, Blazefire, Lightleap, when you mix them up with each other, they are all quite interesting how they differently interact. But I don't want to ship any of them because I don't care about shipping. Least favorite pairing, again, it's, if you're talking about shipping, I don't really care, because I'm not even into shipping. Like, I don't know what the shipping discourse is, so I don't really know much. So I don't know what is like the common popular ship that's, you know, whatever, like causes turmoil or is I don't know. I don't really know any ships that are up for debate. In terms of like dynamics, in like how characters get along, I don't think I have any, because again, as long as it serves a purpose. For me, the thing about Warriors is like, it's a bit complicated because it's a children's series, so obviously there should be some sense of morality in it. There needs to be an understanding that you are writing for people who are going to be influenced by the book in how they see the world. But as like an adult reading this, I'm kind of here for entertainment, you know? So even if you give me two characters that just fight and get into arguments all day, I would be like, well, is this entertaining? Then okay, I'm fine with watching this. Or hey, I'm fine with pitting these two characters together in missions because I think their squabbling would be really funny, or I think that they would push each other to grow in interesting ways, rather than it being a morality thing. But that's not how Warriors is supposed to function. It is supposed to have morality because it is intended to teach lessons to children. So yeah, like super off topic, but yeah, to summarize, I do not have a favorite or least favorite pairing in terms of ship or in terms of other relationships and dynamics. I think some like teams of cats are interesting together, but I don't really care because it's personal interpretation for me, and it's just if you can make an interesting enough map, then sure, I am down to whatever suspension of disbelief or disregarding of canon you want me to do. Favorite friendship. Okay, so that is different from the pairings. Okay, so this is a favorite friendship. I honestly don't know because again, relationships and work are like really shallow, so I don't think that there is a favorite. And I feel so bad because this video is going to be so boring. It's just going to be me going, nope, don't care, I don't know, and then just like blazing through them all. But I really am not a very adamant poring over the books and scouring for information thing. I just kind of am here casually just enjoying the fandom. So like if I go off of fandom interpretation, then I would have to like rack my brains and think about headcanon and fanon and maps and everything and what I think. But I don't really have a favorite friendship in Warrior Cats. I think like again in the most recent book, the relationship, like all of the relationships in Sunbeam's life are pretty interesting. Like I like that they are just pushing her towards absolute disaster, and I want to see that happen in the next few books. Like I am very excited. River currently is a favorite because it has so much potential with all of these things being set up about the characters' personal lives just going down the drain, and I like that. Favorite moment. Yeah, I feel like in my heart I should say the fire scene, but I mean the fire scene, Darktail and One Star drowning, those are like the ones I can think of off the top of my head, but they're also like the first things I like Flamepaw's whole thing standing up to the clans, but like I do feel after some reflection of the book that like yeah, it is, his whole thing is a bit forced. I really like spoilers for River, but I really like the scene in River where Frostbell's mom just straight up dies. Like that is really intense, that is really interesting. I just like all the River Clan deaths in that book actually, because like those are all really fun and they add to the story, like they add to the suspense, like they're fun in the terms of like oh my god, that's a twist, oh what's gonna happen, but Girl Feather's death especially, because I feel like that's gonna be pretty significant and that's gonna have some really big repercussions that we haven't gotten to see yet. Most tragic death. Well, for me a tragic death isn't when my favorite character dies. It's mostly when a character is really close to accomplishing their goals and then dies. When they're like, let's say a character has been really selfish, right, and they know they have to fix it and they are going to apologize to a friend who they fought with, or are very close to accomplishing a goal that means a lot to them, and then they die and the other person like maybe ends up hating them forever. I find that to be super tragic, and I don't think we've had anything like that because most characters would just wrap up their stories, and that kind of sucks a bit. So I don't think there is a tragic death. And deaths like Bristlefrost, which are really tragic, and they've done it so well. Like they've actually done it really well, and like that is probably the closest to a tragic death that I enjoy. Like even that, I kind of enjoy that it happens because all this cool new fan content, and I love it. But yeah, like that was probably going to be my only answer, to say yeah, Bristlefrost's death is the most tragic death in recent times. And the final question, we're almost there. Favorite battle/fight scene. Yeah, this is not going to be easy for me because I don't remember anything. Like I would say Darktail versus One Star for sure, like right now, because that's the only fight I can kind of think of which I'm really interested in. I actually quite like a lot of the Broken Code Dark Forest stuff as well. Not a fight scene, but I like the scenes where all of the Dark Forest cats just come and start bonking Bristlefrost on the head, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna possess you. I like the fight scenes with Firestar as well in them when he possesses Root Spring, because like I wasn't on board with Firestar becoming a relevant part of the book again, but like when they did it, they executed it pretty well, so I was okay with it. And I really find it kind of funny how Firestar just is like, oh, I'm gonna possess you, and then he murders people, and Root Spring is kind of horrified at that oh my god, I can't believe I killed anyone. So that's quite fun. I like that, and I like the one star versus Darkdale scene, and of course Scourge just ending Tiger Star's whole career. And those are probably my favorite fight scenes. And that's it. That's my 20 questions. I hope that this was entertaining. And as for tagging people, I'm gonna just say whoever wants to do this can do this, because I'm not quite I don't want to put people on the spot by tagging them. So, if you want to do it, then do it. The only person I'm going to tag for sure though is Riddle, because I am very curious to see your opinion. I think that you are like the only person I know who I'm like, yeah, they're okay with doing it. So otherwise, whoever wants to do it, do it. And yeah, other videos hopefully soon. I've just got a lot of life stuff at the moment, but animations and potentially video game. I want to do more stuff talking about my games or my other work, or just sharing other work that I'm doing that isn't Warrior Cats. It's just that I have been working on a lot of big projects, so I haven't been able to like release stuff often, and life stuff is keeping me pretty busy. So hopefully I can get to this at some point in the life in the future. Yes, words. But yeah, so I will see everybody at another time. Goodbye.